What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus package update and daily news report for Friday, January 21st. So currently, Democrats are doing all they can to find chunks of the Build Back Better Act and try to resurrect a new bill. States have hundreds of billions of dollars in unspent funding that many are actually looking at using for one-time stimulus payments, worker bonuses, worker retention checks, and even additional housing assistance. We know Senator Chuck Schumer states that the Senate, even though they didn't pass any bill or change the filibuster rules, they made progress in the two fights. And when asked yesterday about the promise to cancel up to $10,000 in student debt, President Biden simply ignored the reporter's question, or her first question, and answered the second part. We know Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she said that the Federal Reserve and the Biden administration will take steps to control inflation, and she sees a clear path forward. And multiple virologists now say, and these are from around the world, are now saying that they've all agreed we can't eliminate COVID at this point. That's out of the question, but we need to learn to live with it. So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Also, do me a favor if you enjoy these daily uploads and go ahead and hit that like button. But let's get right into it. So Democrats are actually now pushing for a new bill. The $2 trillion spending bill that President Biden once pushed for and said had to be passed, well, this is going to be changed. According to Nancy Pelosi, she stated that the name will need to be different. We can't call this the Build Back Better Act. She also stated that a standalone bill is not going to be possible, or standalone bills, because Democrats, they only have a limited number of budget reconciliation bills that they can even pass. So because of that one fact, having multiple standalone bills at this point just doesn't seem feasible, and according to Nancy Pelosi, it would be very difficult to get the majority of the House and the Senate on board with multiple different bills, because then it comes down to, okay, we're going to vote on the child tax credit payments, we're going to vote on climate change, we're going to vote on expanding Medicare, and let's say we're going to vote on, pre-K, universal pre-K. Those are the four bills that we're going to vote on. So what she's pretty much saying is, okay, those are the four bills. Now, which bill should we actually put first? Which bill should we pass first? Because guess what? All four aren't going to pass. The first one, likely to pass. Second one, most likely to pass. Third one, that's in question. The fourth one will most likely never pass. So how do we put those in order? Every single lawmaker is going to have a different idea. So because of that, it would almost be impossible to get this done. We also know that President Biden mentioned that the bill will likely need to be scaled down in order to pass. But that brings up the other question that we saw over a year ago. What pieces do we cut? Senator Bernie Sanders, he stated this so many times when Senator Joe Manchin said we have to reduce the bill, it's too much. But he asked, well, what do we cut? How do we get an investment into childcare? How do we do that? How do we cut billions of dollars in climate? Or how do you tell seniors that Medicare just won't be expanded? How do you do that? Well, President Biden stated that he really supports climate change, tuition-free community college, and the child tax credit payments. But he doesn't know if any of those are actually going to go through. The only provision that has enough support at this point is climate. But according to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, she stated that President Biden is going to push to get the biggest chunks of the Build Back Better Act passed in the next bill. But as of right now, the Build Back Better Act is almost all but dead. Democrats have to find a way to put together a new bill, and because Senator Joe Manchin has already stated that we're going to be starting from scratch, the other issue is, do we take these provisions, expanding Medicare, child tax credit payments, universal pre-K, paid family leave, lowering prescription drug prices, affordable housing, and there's more as well, but do we take all these and just pretty much throw them aside and start with a new clean slate? Or do we take all those provisions, bring them back, and start with one after the other and see how high we can build this? That's what Democrats don't know. That's what Senator Joe Manchin has no clue on either. So right now, everybody's pretty much starting from scratch and trying to figure out which idea is going to be best. So seeing a bill pass in January, not going to happen. Highly unlikely, because we got, 10 days left? Seeing a bill pass in February? Well, that's highly unlikely as well. Seeing something pass sometime in March or April, according to experts, that has a higher possibility of passing. But again, it's still a big question mark. Some are saying we might not see anything happen until either closer or into summer of 2022. So, as we get more information there, I promise I will fill you in on that update as well. Now, over the past year, I've been telling you guys the same thing over and over, that states have hundreds of billions of dollars that they could be spending and will spend, but they're just waiting for the right time. Now, over the past year, and even moving forward, many states have actually moved away from long-term commitments or permanent tax cuts. And they actually want to instead put their budget surpluses to a more of a one-time use. Now, these one-time uses could mean adding to a state's budget reserves, pension debts, restoring tax breaks, providing stimulus checks, money to address homelessness, address climate change. And in certain states, there's actual there's real plans that are moving forward. For instance, in Florida, there's another potential $1,000 retention payment for teachers. Another one. We've already seen one. There could be another one. We know that phasing out state income tax for seniors in Maryland is considered something that's highly likely. That would save seniors. I think there's a state income tax of, like 5.2%. I know it's in the 5% range. I don't know exactly what it is, but somewhere close to that. We know property tax relief checks could be sent out in New York. A property tax relief check. That's new. That's just a stimulus check. It's just for property taxes, right? That's interesting. That's very interesting. I like that idea. I think New York is coming up with different ways to provide for their residents. We also know in New York, as much as a $3,000 worker bonus for healthcare workers is actually being discussed. That's big. And the reason I say this is big is because not just is $3,000 a big payment. For some, yes, it is. But for healthcare workers that have gone through mandates, have gone through these different surges in this pandemic, I think $3,000, it should be $10,000, $20,000. But again, that's just me. But what you need to understand is states are now coming up with different ideas, different ways to provide for their residents, to provide and put money back into the state, put money back into the pockets of those that have lived there, worked there, invested into that state. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, states have hundreds of billions of dollars that they're just willing to spend. They're just waiting for that right time. And according to some, as we get closer to the end of this pandemic, then states could be like, okay, we don't need as much money in our reserves. Let's go invest. Let's invest in our people, in our communities, in our residents. So that's what we're seeing at this time. It's going to be interesting. It will be very interesting to see how much money goes back to the residents in what state. So as we learn more information on what's going on there, I promise I will fill you in on that update as soon as we get it as well. Now, Senator Schumer says that even though the filibuster wasn't changed, the voting rights bill couldn't be passed, the Senate still made progress. He stated that it took several sessions of Congress before the civil rights and the voting rights legislation would be signed into law by then President Johnson. So he says that everybody had to go on record and vote. He applauded those 48 Democrats that went on record and wanted the rules to be changed. And as of right now, this fight is pretty much paused. But Democrats will be back. Senator Schumer says Democrats will be back to fight again. So we will see. Now, yesterday a reporter asked a couple questions. This was at the end of the little interview with President Biden. But here's what happened. This reporter asked two questions. Now, one was, I think it was on like voting rights or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. But the first question was addressing student debt and the promise that he made. Now, President Biden went on to answer the reporter's second question first. And then did he come back and answer the first question on the student debt? No. And the reason for this, according to multiple experts, is because we're going to have an answer very soon. President Biden, he doesn't want to get into this debate. But experts say that whether President Biden gives a statement or not, we will have an answer when the student loan payment pause expires. Okay? The payments have to resume on May 1st. Whether President Biden gives a statement or not doesn't matter, because if the payments resume, that means he is not going to cancel student debt. He's not going to cancel up to $10,000. But if he extends the payment pause, then that means he's still considering it. So, as of May 1st, we will have an answer. We also heard from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and she says that the Federal Reserve and the Biden administration will take the steps necessary to combat inflation. She says the Fed's plan is to have inflation closer to 2% by the end of this year, so that 5% drop is going to be tough, and it could cause a massive drop in the markets. This is what a lot of investors are worried about. But Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she goes and says, and I quote, "A year ago, if you go back to the challenges that we were facing and the Federal Reserve was facing, unemployment was extremely high. We were all worried that we would be facing a situation like we had after 2008, when it took almost a decade to go back to full employment, which we are almost back to now." She goes and says, "I think it has been viewed as a remarkable success that the unemployment has fallen the most in a year in American history." So, yes, unemployment has gone down significantly in the past year, but we've also made strides elsewhere. So, we will see what happens next week though, because there's another meeting next week, and economists are actually predicting that the Fed is going to discuss raising rates in March and then selling off assets soon after. This is going to be a very big week. If you are an investor, this is something that you have to be looking into. This is something that I am watching. I'm very aware of what's going on, and you just have to be, because this could, most likely, it's going to send the market a little bit deeper down into this dive. But it could also send us up. We will see what happens, but let's always expect the worst, or prepare for the worst. Was it expect the worst, prepare for the best? Something like, I don't know. Something like that. We will see. But again, that's happening next week. But let's get into some COVID news for today, because virologists around the world are saying that COVID can't be eliminated now. They say it is far too late, and right now, all it takes is another variant that is very similar to Omicron to form, and this would actually take us back to where we first began. They say we won't be able to eliminate this virus, so we need to learn to live with it. That is what we are being told at this point. I think that is what Europe is pretty much decided on. Many other countries have pretty much settled that on the fact that we're not going to eliminate this. We're not going to beat this. It's here to stay. Let's learn to live with it. So we will see what happens there. But as always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all latest news and updates with you. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.